Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our readings on Carl Rogers on Becoming a Person, a Therapist's View of Psychotherapy. I've been reading from the 60th anniversary edition, and we are just about ready to complete the section on the process conception of psychotherapy. This started on page 125. This was chapter 7, and I think that and we are on the middle top of page 155, and we are going to complete this on the middle of 158. And actually, we're also going to complete this part. And so the next time we meet, we will be continuing on with part 4, A Philosophy of Persons. So let's get this section complete. Some questions. So this is 155, the middle here where it starts with some questions. Some questions regarding this process continuum. Let me try to anticipate certain questions which may be raised about the process I have tried to describe. This is the process by which personality changes, or one of many kinds. Is this the process, is this the process by which personality changes, or one of many kinds of change? This I do not know. Perhaps there are several types of process by which personality changes. I would only specify that this seems to be the process which is set in motion when the individual experiences himself as being fully received. Does it apply in all psychotherapies, or is this the process which occurs in one psychotherapeutic orientation only? Until we have more recordings of therapy from other orientations, this question cannot be answered. However, I would hazard a guess that perhaps therapeutic approaches which place great stress on the cognitive and little on the emotional aspects of experience may set in motion an entirely different process of change. Would everyone agree that this is a desirable process of change, that it moves in valued directions? I believe not. I believe some people do not value fluidity. This will be one of the social value judgments which individuals and cultures will have to make. Such a process of change can easily be avoided by reducing or avoiding those relationships in which the individual is fully received as he is. Is change on this continuum rapid? My observation is quite the contrary. My interpretation of Kertner's study, which may be slightly different than his, is that a client might start therapy at about stage 2 and end at about stage 4, with both client and therapist being quite legitimately satisfied that substantial progress has been made. It would occur very rarely, if ever, that a client who fully exemplified stage 1 would move to a point where he fully exemplified stage 7. If this did occur, it would involve a matter of years. Are the descriptive items properly grouped at each stage? I feel sure there are many errors in the way I have grouped my observations. I also wonder what important elements have been omitted. I wonder also if the different elements of this continuum might not be more parsimoniously described. All such questions, however, may be given an empirical answer if the hypothesis that I am setting forth has merit in the eyes of various research workers. Summary. I have tried to sketch in a crude and preliminary manner the flow of a process of change which occurs when a client experiences himself as being received, welcomed, understood as he is. The process involves several threads, separable at first, becoming more of a unity as the process continues. This process involves a loosening of feelings. At the lower end of the continuum, they are described as remote, unowned, and not now present. They are then described as present objects with some sense of ownership by the individual. Next, they are expressed as owned feelings in terms of closer to their immediate experiencing. Still further up the scale, they are experienced and expressed in the immediate present with a decreasing fear of this process. Also, at this point, even those feelings which have been previously denied to awareness bubble through into awareness, are experienced and increasingly owned. At the upper end of the continuum, living in the process of experiencing a continually changing flow of feelings becomes characteristic of the individual. The process involves a change in a manner of experiencing. The continuum begins with a fixity in which the individual is very remote from his experiencing and unable to draw upon or symbolize the implicit meaning. Experiencing must be safely in the past before a meaning can be drawn from it, and the present is interpreted in terms of these past meanings. From this remoteness in relation to his experiencing, the individual moves toward the recognition of experiencing as a troubling process going on within him. Experiencing gradually becomes more accepted, a more accepted inner referent to which he can turn for increasingly accurate meanings. Finally, he becomes able to live freely and acceptantly in a fluid process of experiencing, using it comfortably as a major reference for his behavior. The process involves a shift from incongruence to congruence. The continuum runs from a maximum of incongruence, which is quite unknown to the individual, through stages where there is an increasingly sharp recognition of the contradictions and discrepancies existing within himself, to the experiencing of incongruence in the immediate present in a way which dissolves this. At the upper end of the continuum, there would never be more than a temporary incongruence between experiencing and awareness, since the individual would not need to defend himself against the threatening aspects of his experience. So the gap closes or shortens. The process involves a change in the manner in which and the extent to which the individual is able and willing to communicate himself in a receptive climate. The continuum runs from a complete unwillingness to communicate self to the self as a rich and changing awareness of the internal experiencing, which is readily communicated when the individual desires to do so. The process involves a loosening of the cognitive maps of experience, from construing experience in rigid ways which are perceived as external facts. The client moves toward developing changing, loosely held construings of meaning in experience, constructions which are modified by each new experience. There is a change in the individual's relationship to his problems. At one end of the continuum, problems are unrecognized and there is no desire to change. Gradually, there is recognition that problems exist. At a further stage, there is recognition that the individual has contributed to these problems, that they have not arisen entirely from external sources. Increasingly, there is a sense of self-responsibility for the problems. Further up the continuum, there is a living experience of some aspect of the problems. The person lives his problems subjectively, feeling responsible for the contribution he has made in the development of his problems. There is a change in the individual's manner of relating. At one end of the continuum, the individual avoids close relationships, which are perceived as being dangerous. At the other end of the continuum, he lives openly and freely in relation to the therapist and to others, guiding his behavior in the relationship on the basis of his immediate experiencing. In general, the process moves from point to fixity, where all the elements and threads described above are separately discernible and separately understandable, to the flowing peak movements of therapy, in which all these threads become inseparably woven together. In the new experiencing with immediacy, which occurs at such moments, feeling and cognition interpenetrate self as a self self is subjectively present in the experience. Volition is simply the subjective following of a harmonious balance of an organismic direction. Thus, as the process reaches this point, the person becomes a unity of flow, of motion. He has changed, but what seems most significant, he has become an integrated process of changingness. An end of reading for today, and the next time we meet, we will continue and we will start with part 4, a philosophy of persons, and go from there. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your days and happy reading. And I look forward to being with all of you again soon.